Hi, everybody. Welcome to Keep It Watered and Watch It Grow, managing mature partnerships between 2- and 4-year institutions. My name is Rick DeBellis, and I am Associate Director for Degree Partnership Programs and Transfer Student Services at Oregon State University. And with me today is Bridget Jones. Bridget, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Bridget Jones. I am the Senior Associate Director for Transfer Admissions.
I've been at Oregon State University now for 23 years. I came to OSU as a grad student and ended up staying at Oregon State University. This wasn't my plan, but I've had some fantastic opportunities, and one of them is to work with the Degree Partnership Program. My course of travel through the university was working in an orientation program. I went from there to summer session, eCampus, and then back to enrollment management in the Degree Partnership Program. My position was the first full-time staff person for the Degree Partnership Program at Oregon State University. And we did this at about the 12-year mark of the program. So it's been a good opportunity for us to kind of really focus in on the needs of this program. Our Degree Partnership Program it started in 1998, and it really came from the need to make sure that students were being well taken care of. We had some financial issues within our state, and we had students that were scouting around for courses between multiple 4-year and 2-year schools. And so what we did is we tried to create a pathway that allowed students to combine their coursework together and make it successful for them so they could graduate easier and on time. We have partnerships with 17 community colleges in Oregon, 3 in Hawaii, and the Hawaii story is a whole other piece that we won't get into today. But we definitely enjoy the partnerships that we've had. And we work very hard to maintain these partnerships with each of our schools. We have agreements between the schools that look at both the partnership and how financial aid works together through consortium agreements. So today our plan is to kind of go through, we already did the introduction and the context a little bit, but to review the types of partnership programs, review the strategies for maintaining and maturing partnership, navigating staff turnover, navigating institutional shifting priorities, and then when is it time to sunset a partnership. These opportunities may be a little bit different at your institution, but we hope that you will take some time during the pauses in our presentation to really think about what it is that you can get out of this and how our partnerships and experiences could be applied to your institution and your specific goals that you need to meet for your institution. So wanted to talk a little bit about the different types of partnerships that we have. We have some various different types and what they kind of fall into. So our most formal agreement is our memos of MOU, or a memo of understanding. These are generally more general agreements, but they have specific goals in mind. They're usually long-term agreements. They are signed by the presidents of our institutions. They really kind of lay out the details of how we're going to work together to make sure that our students are taken care of, both from the community college side and from OSU. We also do signed agreements, and it's more specific details than an MOU. For example, signed agreements about sharing staff members between schools. So we have transfer services managers that are based at some of our community colleges, and they share space or hope to share space, share resources. And so it's kind of making sure those details are taken care of so that we can be successful and the community college can be successful. And we have a good understanding of what each side needs in that relationship. The third type of formal partnership that we can do is an articulation agreement. One of the things that OSU stopped doing many years ago was having formalized articulation agreements for programs. For example, let's say our forestry program with a specific school. The reason for that is that most articulation agreements have a set time where they sunset. So it might be a 3-year agreement. And it's an agreement that if a student takes these series of classes and transfers in, it's going to meet all of these specific requirements. What we found is that many times faculty members change, the person who set up the agreement may move on or have a different project. And then about 6-7 years down, the student shows up with an articulation agreement that has sunsetted and said, well, I did all these things, why don't I get these credits? So we moved to a system where we use more articulation agreements are particular courses. So specifically to a course at one school will transfer in and meet a specific course at OSU. We found that this is much more successful, that it's more user-friendly for the students, it's more user-friendly and understandable for both the community college, and has really met the requirements for both the community colleges and OSU. We have some informal partnerships as well. They're more designed to really meet up with the way in which we can better serve students. So for example, we have a partnership with an out-of-state community college to really kind of talk about, yes, we're going to work to make sure that our courses transfer in easily for those students. We are on a quarter system, and so a lot of the schools in surrounding Oregon are on the semester system, and so that does cause challenges. And so many times students will see when they transfer in that our courses are listed as just lower division transfer credits. But knowing that we agree with the community college that we're going to work hard to help that course come in and be best fitting into a degree plan, it really kind of helps the student feel more confident about their decision to come to OSU. So now we're going to move on to some of our questions for you to have for consideration. So what we'd like to use, take a pause, take a look at these questions, and see how you would answer them.
Okay, in our next section, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that are very helpful for maintaining and maturing a partnership over time. Because of course, you know, a lot of folks put a lot of work into setting these up, and you want them to continue to grow and to mature over the years. So one of the top strategies, of course, that we recommend is to set a reasonable and regular timeline for revisiting. I think sometimes, you know, people get really excited about the process of forming the partnership and doing the work and getting all the documents signed, and then they completely just put those documents on a shelf and forget that they exist. And it's important to, you know, we're all in higher education, we understand that things change daily, sometimes hourly for some of our institutions. And so setting a regular timeline for revisiting those partnerships is really important. I know at OSU, even within various departments, they're meeting with their community college partners annually, sometimes twice a year, to kind of talk about how things are aligning. So setting whatever a reasonable timeline is for your own institution is a great strategy to work into your cycle of talking about these partnerships, but making sure it is consistent and that it's happening with key partner contacts. Ensuring that all offices of the original agreement are actively involved and updated on the plans is a really important strategy. You know, for us with our degree partnership program, that is our partnerships involve admissions, financial aid, the registrar's office. So it's really important that all of those folks are regularly updated on what changes. We know financial aid regulations are changing all the time, and that can have an effect on the agreement and the partnership. And we want to make sure those voices are at the table to determine what's best for the student and what's best for our institutions in working together. And really having a plan for keeping those offices accountable for their involvement. You know, we added that extra note of making sure that senior leadership is involved in these conversations, and we'll talk a little bit later about the shifting of institutional priorities, but you know, the sort of gravitas that senior leadership voices have in terms of affecting changes that need to be made to our partnerships. And again, ensuring that the best for both institutions and the students is sort of at the forefront of how these partnerships grow and develop is really important. And oftentimes the voices of senior leadership can provide that. Taking time with developing and reviewing contracts and formal agreements is something that I have learned, I guess personally, has been an important part of developing and growing a partnership, with our most recent signed agreements that we've worked on at Oregon State, it was a lot of legalese that I had to learn, but in going through all of that, it was really important to make sure that that is in there to ensure, that we're not creating undue liability for our institution, that we're not setting up a partner institution for anything that might be compromising, and so taking time to review that yourself and understand what the language means, but then also running it by the appropriate people. We do have our contracts office review all of our partnerships documents. And again, kind of that ties back into the review these regularly to make sure that they are meeting the needs and kind of policy standards and all of that are set forth by your institution. And then the final strategy listed here, at least, is connecting partnership activities and communications into the transfer recruitment plan, and ensuring that the staff involved are aware of the details of those partnership agreements. And this is more of just a consistency, a unifying sort of strategy to ensure that what's written in a partnership document shouldn't be different than the recruitment activities. I know in our partnership documents, as Rick mentioned, we are outlining very specifically that a staff member will be, on a particular community college campus so many days a week. So we're setting expectations there. And the folks that are kind of the primary contacts, our transfer services managers for each of those community colleges, they have seen these agreements as well. And so they know that, again, the expectation that they are present at those community college partners is something that has been written and formalized. And so it keeps us all on all levels, from policy to the recruitment team to our partner community colleges. Everyone is on the same page. And so we know what to expect. And so when things go wrong, we can also kind of look back to these documents to ensure that everyone is doing their part in fulfilling their end of the agreement that everyone sees and signs off on before we formally enact those partnerships. We also have some questions for consideration for this section, so feel free to pause the presentation and talk about or consider at least what offices would need to be included in deepening your own partnerships, perhaps which of those should be cycled out. Are senior members of your leadership team in support of the partnerships that may exist, and to what extent are they involved in those conversations, and are there opportunities for them to get involved at a deeper level? And are all members of your recruitment team familiar with the partnerships that exist, and are the activities of the team supporting those partnerships as well?
I think one of the things that I want to just touch back on, one of the past pieces before we move on to the navigating staff turnover, is the importance of communication and making sure that the people at the community college and the four-year school don't see this as, this is our way to get students. This is our way to steal students. And we deal a lot with that, particularly when we have staff turnover, that people think, oh, well, this program is here to really, they're trying to take our students. And I hear that every once in a while. And really it's, no, I'm here to help support your students to be successful. And if they transfer to my institution, great. But if they transfer to another institution, that's okay. My goal is to get people to their bachelor's degree. And if it's not going to work at my school, as long as they're moving on to another school, that's really what's important. I think the challenge in maintaining these relationships is, remembering that who you're here for and who you're here to work, in support of. And for me, I really take that back to making sure that we're supporting students. When we have staff turnover, it's important that you keep track of who's at each community college. So I do an annual call out to every community college to check and see, are the same people that I think are in the position still there? A lot of times there'll be turnover. And because up until my position, we didn't really have anybody consistently maintaining this information, we would have staff turnover, or someone would change. And because maintaining this partnership was a small piece of someone's job, that person leaves and nobody knew that person was doing that task. Hopefully with our new transfer services managers that are based at the schools, we're going to know about these things much earlier, and it's going to allow us to be more focused on maintaining those relationships. Sometimes the staff turnover can give you the opportunity to change a direction. So you can be working with the staff members to say, wow, this didn't work that great, or in teaching someone how this is how we've used the program in the past, they may come up with an idea that actually works much better. And so we've actually been able to modify some of our programs based upon a new blood coming into the system and saying, wow, that's great, but this would work even better, and this would serve students better. And it all goes back to that serving students better. We do that through keeping updated contact lists, being available when people call back. So if I get a phone call from a staff person from another school, that is the highest priority for me to get back to that staff person. If it's an academic advisor, it's to make sure that they're getting the right information. If it's an administrator, it's to make sure that I'm able to answer the question that they have or solve the problem that's come up between our two schools. Because if we let it sit and we let it fester, we don't respond back to it, then that becomes bigger problems. We've had some situations come up where we've had times where we've needed to leverage some upper level administrators to make some things happen, because we've had staff at a lower level that have come in and said, no, this isn't really important, or I don't like this school, so I'm not going to send students there. Well, that's not really that person's responsibility to make that decision. Again, we're here to serve students, and so if a student wants to go to school X over school Y, we should be doing our best to make sure that those pathways are as easy as possible for those students. One of the things that we try to do is discuss problems proactively. So if we start to see something happen or a question comes up, we make sure that we get back and forth with our community college partners to make sure that we're addressing whatever that situation is. Is this a situation that's an individual student situation, or is this the tip of the iceberg of a piece of the system that may have broken and we need to fix that? So having and navigating the staff turnover is really important, that both the partners at the community college and the partners at the four-year school know what's going on and know how and where things need to be corrected if necessary.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about navigating shifting institutional priorities, because we all know that this happens. And I think this last year for us living through the pandemic and how that's affected higher education, particularly here in Oregon, we've seen it affecting numbers, and that tends to also affect priorities with various institutions in how they go about participating in certain activities. So, as priorities shift, particularly between us as a bachelor's granting institution, and we know our strategic initiatives and institutional priorities are going to be different than our community college partners, but recognizing that there is enough crossover between them and kind of starting from some of those places of shared interest and commonality, knowing that both of our institutions exist to serve and educate students. And so, both of our institutions also want to do what's best by the student. So, in order to kind of combat some shifting institutional priorities, maybe, you do work for an institution that sees a lot of change, and in setting up a partnership, you definitely want to sort of figure out how, like, if new leadership comes in, how can you secure buy-in to the partnership that might already exist? One way to do that is to ensure that the partnership language and documents do reflect and align with your institution's current strategic plan. And so, for instance, it is within the Oregon State University strategic plan to serve transfer students and to improve some of our work with transfer students. So in setting up partnerships that intentionally do that, if we were to say get a new president, they would be able to see that what we're currently doing aligns with what the vision and sort of direction of the institution. And that's an easier way to secure buy-in, particularly over time. And I think looking for those opportunities to identify common goals between the two institutions in partnership is a great place to start from in sort of, again, if the one partner kind of wants this, the other partner maybe ultimately wants this, there will be common ground. And so starting from that place, instead of walking in to a partnership or kind of holding your ground so much on the things that your institution may want, that you can't even build that relationship and build that bridge between the two. Understanding and tracking the numbers is a great way to sort of bolster the importance of the partnership, even if institutional priorities shift, because if you're seeing in the numbers that these partnerships and these programs really are supporting student success, from both sides and all sides, numbers don't lie, and that builds a very strong case for however change might happen on the administrative level. And so, if we can see, for instance, from a four-year perspective, like how our community college students persist through to completion of their four-year degree and can report those numbers then back to our community college partners. Those are success stories that they can use, that they can market, that supports, again, their goal of, students completing their associate's degrees first and then building that pipeline to send them to us for completion of the four-year degree. Like, that's a common victory that we can all celebrate. But you need to know what those numbers actually are. Leveraging advocates across both institutions is also a really great strategy for navigating those shifting priorities. If there is someone in your partner institution who is a fan of your own institution, and they are sitting in those meetings with upper level administration and put in a good word for why the continuation of a partnership with your institution is important, then have those conversations, continue to foster those relationships, build those relationships up, because that can be really helpful and powerful in ensuring that, your institution is being talked about positively across both administrations. Finding opportunities to create easy wins for your partner institutions, negotiating if necessary, and thinking creatively. These are sort of tidbits pulled from, I guess, some good principles of negotiation. People think of negotiation and they tend to not have good feelings about it, but the purpose of negotiation is to create win-win situations. And that's what we're wanting to do with our partnerships as they continue to grow and mature. Finding ways that we can continue to create win-win situations for both our students and our institutions. And so what are the easy wins that both institutions can find in a situation? Negotiating is like, well, we can't let you come to our campus this many times, or we can't let you have office space, but hey, you can set up at this table pretty regularly and or whatever. Get creative about it. That's the third point, or the last point that I've listed there. There's so many creative ways that you can help each other out. One that I'm thinking of now, again, this is a previous institution, the community college needed a large space to host an event. Me working for a particular four-year institution, our institution had the space to host that event. And so by offering them that space for free, we were able to expose their students, their community college students, to our four-year institution. And that was a win-win. They saved money and got the space. We had a few minutes to, just kind of showcase our campus to those students. That was easy to do. And so looking for those opportunities, because they do exist, and those are the sorts of things that can keep your partnership going strong, even as the institution may shift in some of its focus. The core focus of our institutions is always going to stay the same. And then sort of the last bit before we wrap up here is kind of talking about sunsetting a partnership and when some signs of doing that or kind of presenting themselves. Some easy ones: insufficient staffing or funds. If you don't have the staff to keep it running, or the funds to keep a partnership running, that obviously presents itself as a natural stopping point, because of course you don't, you know, we all want to get things started, I think sometimes, and we all have great ideas, but if you don't have the staff to do it well, ultimately, you know, relationships, professional relationships can suffer, but also students can suffer too. So that's kind of one of those to be on the lookout for. If the partnership doesn't actually make the process easier for transfers for the students, that's kind of another indicator that maybe, you know, this isn't the best use of time and resources. Yes, you know, there are many ways that professionally, as colleagues, we can support each other across partnerships and across institutions, but really we're ultimately there to serve the transfer student. And so thinking about whether or not that's actually happening through our policies and our practices is something that's really important. And then, you know, Rick mentioned earlier, like with articulation agreements at OSU, you know, there was an expiration date on those. And sometimes that is a natural and good stopping point for sunsetting a partnership. So evaluating kind of where your institution falls in any of those areas is really important. And knowing that sunsetting a partnership isn't necessarily a bad thing, because that means you can think of other opportunities to connect and build and mature a partnership in a new way that may better fit the institutional priorities and goals of both parties involved.
A couple other considerations to just take in mind. Be involved with state mandates. Know what they are. Get involved in state organizations. So I serve on the Oregon Transfer Articulation Committee. I've been on that for now about 5 or 6 years, but it's really given me the opportunity to hear about issues coming across the state, what our legislators are planning on doing and dealing with, the consequences of those actions that have been taken, or the possibilities that they're being taken through the state or federal action. Securing buy-in for some of these initiatives can take years. It's not, you know, just a quick and easy, hey, I've got an agreement, I've got an MOU, let's get it signed, let's get it taken care of. In some cases, it may actually go very quickly, but in other cases, it may take you a year or 2 or 3 to get both schools in the right place where it works for both schools and for the students. To me, it's always important to ask the question, what's best for our students? And if you aren't asking that question on a daily basis, you should be. How am I better serving students, and how can I make sure that these students are being served? Sometimes some of these will bring up difficult situations. Changing priorities sometimes happen and you need to pivot. That's okay. It's good to have those conversations with your partners to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We try and meet with our partner schools. I try and meet with all the schools I work with on at least a quarterly basis, just to check in. How are things going? Are there any students we're having issues with? Our largest partner, we meet with them on every quarter, and I attend staff meetings on their campus every week. So I know what's going on there. They know what's going on at OSU. One of the things I want to touch on really quickly is that we do have a standard memo of understanding. It is available on our partnerships webpage, so partnerships.oregonstate.edu. And it's located in the educator section, along with a number of resources that we've put together from presentations, from some of our degree partnership summits. There's different ways and different departments have used our programs, going from our eCampus to our Oregon Promise. All of these things have really benefited the degree partnership program and have made it much easier for us to pivot when new changes come along, because we already have signed agreements with our partners. COVID was a perfect example of being set and ready to go. When students said, you know, I don't want to leave my home, I want to stay local. For our students that are in the Portland area or in Klamath Falls or located in Hawaii, they're able to take classes at their local community college and still be an OSU student and still be counted as a full active student. So please take some time, think about the opportunities that we've talked about here today. If you have questions, reach out to us. We're more than happy to answer questions and be a resource for you. If you need to brainstorm, you need someone from outside, give us a call. We're more than happy to help you out. Any last comments, Bridget?
Nope, I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining us today.